I'm Wesley Hunt.
I'm Rendon Hunt.
And you're in the hunt.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. One of my favorite passages in the Bible is Mark 12:31. Love your neighbor as yourself. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're going to unpack that. The only reason I said unpack is Wesley hates it when people say unpack.
Let me unpack this.
It's one of those things that people do to sound smarter. It's that consultant talk. Could you help me unpack that? People always.
Where are you going?
It's the go-to.
Where are you going?
You're not going anywhere.
It's a suitcase.
Keep that packed up.
Just keep it packed up. Just tell me what you want. I know you will need that.
But as you think about love your neighbor as yourself, it's one of those things that it's easy for us to talk specifically about loving your neighbor, but we don't think about the second clause as much as we should.
Yeah.
And that's the idea of the extent to which you love yourself is the ceiling to which you can love your neighbor.
Absolutely.
So if you don't love yourself, if you don't have respect for yourself, then loving your neighbor as yourself is not going to be complimentary in any way.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talk frequently about is the idea of simplicity in life. And when you look at the teachings in the gospel of Jesus or any other faith base, there's this idea that comes up of the complexity lies in the simplicity. Mm-hmm. And by that I mean sometimes these things in life are so easy, like the concept is so easy that we struggle to put forward all these different pieces to make it more complex, to fit it in a way that we want it to be. We want these things to be more complex.
And less is more, oftentimes.
Exactly. It's the Occam's razor idea, right? The idea that the simplest version of things or the simplest solution is likely the best solution.
Yes.
And so as we think about the idea of loving your neighbor as yourself, and that being in many ways a cornerstone of many faith traditions, really the idea of how do we feel about ourselves, what does that mean, and then more broadly, who is our neighbor, right? I mean, and those are the things that we delve into. As you think about the simplicity of things, I see it oftentimes with my kids. I have two kids. One is more talented in perhaps the arts and language and stuff, my daughter Esther. My son Wright is more talented
in buffoonery.
That too. Just being more physically talented. And now it's funny.
He's really good at being.
I don't even call him Wright right now. He's in this phase right now where I need to call him Darth because he's watching Star Wars.
So do I have to call him Darth too? I'm not calling my nephew Darth.
Darth.
I'm not doing it.
Yes,
I will.
That's what he wants.
I'll call him whatever he wants.
It's kind of like
Mama call him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
Hey. With Esther, it was like the phase she went through with Elsa in Frozen, where she was going to this little preschool, and the teachers would send us notes home every day and say, hey, Esther's doing well on X, Y, Z, but these are some areas that she can develop. And she had this phase where she would only go by Elsa from Frozen. So we would get home and we would say, hey, Esther, Elsa, yes?
This is great.
And so that's where Wright kind of is with Darth. But the reason I bring them up is trying to get them to explain the way that they do things well is incredible.
Yeah.
So Esther has figured out how to draw things in 3 dimensions. So she drew this bunny that had a flap of an ear. And I can't even draw things in 3 dimensions.
No, you never could.
No. No.
You're the worst artist ever.
Ever.
I remember when Esther would bring home scribble stuff when she was 2, and I was like, it's way better than I've ever seen Rendon do. It's like, yes, dude.
It's like, she clearly did not get it from me. And I asked her one time, I just asked her, how did you write that or draw that in 3 dimensions? And it was just, she was trying to explain something to me, and it was like me trying to explain physics to her. Yeah. It's like, well, it's easy. If you just look at it from this perspective, and I was like, wow, I just can't understand that. Yeah. But in her mind, it was so simple.
Yeah.
And for Wright, watching a 3-year-old swing a golf club and a baseball bat better than I can with intangibles. He simplified it so much in his mind. When I ask him how he swings, it's just, well, yeah, you just swing it. The ball's there, right? Yeah. And that's, in many ways, that's what we miss out on our culture in terms of just thinking about the simplicity of some of the things in our lives. And we see this in our world all the time right now, where we just don't step back and say, how do you just be a good person to people?
So we're seeing a lot of that today. A lot of the consternation and a lot of the bickering and a lot of the dissent that we're seeing right now stems from people trying to make things way too complicated. And to bring it back to what you were talking about with Wright just swinging a golf club and he does it naturally, it's just as simple as be nice to people, love your neighbor like yourself. That's all. And what we were finding out is that actually people don't love themselves. And so what's happening is that they are projecting their disdain for themselves onto other people. And sadly, they don't realize that it's not because the other person has a different political view than you. It's because you are so dissatisfied with yourself that it's almost as if you want to bring somebody down with you.
Absolutely. Misery loves company.
Misery loves company. And even, while I was running and I was talking about this in the first episode about us, getting very close throughout this whole process and me losing some friends, you start to realize that, again, people aren't interested in your success because they are so focused on their own personal downfalls. So how can we use this platform to help people understand that it's okay to love yourself?
Hey.
It's okay to love your faults. And what we're conjecturing is that should you do that, then you'll probably treat other people better. And I don't mean love yourself. We don't mean love yourself in a conceited way. Huh. Not I love myself because I'm so good at everything. Huh. It's more of a like God talks about an agape love thing. It's more of a bigger love of yourself, a bigger love of mankind. And then once that happens, we can start having more substantive conversations about how to heal and about how to get better. Yeah. Also, we don't have to agree. We don't have to think alike all the time. Mm-hmm. How about we seek to understand one another? But again, if the barrier is self-hate, self-loathing,
yes,
then you're never going to get across that bridge.
Well, I mean, life is a mirror, right?
Yes.
Because so many of the things that frustrate us the most in life, and hell, we see this as parents all the time, the deficiencies that we see in others are the deficiencies that we loathe about ourselves.
Yes.
Right? And it's that whole idea of the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. Right? Apathy. So these same things that we see, the same thing that whether you're on the far right or the far left, you see something that I can't stand, that that person does X, Y, Z and can't see things in the way that I see them. You can't stand it because you've realized that you have the inability to see things in the way that others can see them. Like whenever people get to the point, it's one of the things that gets to me at the crux of the issue. It really gets to me. Whenever I hear people say, I don't see how people could blank.
You've lost it.
You're not paying attention.
You've lost it. You don't want to learn. You are already seeking to condemn. You've lost it.
Yeah, you're not even interested. I don't understand how people, or you see it especially on social media now. It's whenever people decide that they want to give their Sermon on the Mount on social media. You know, it's those ones you have to click through on Facebook. So if you have an iPhone 11 or older, you get a third of it in the scene.
Meanwhile, we're both sitting there like, how do you have time for this? Do you work?
Like how do you do this? You're clicking through, and it always starts off with, I usually don't post on Facebook, but so that's how it starts off.
Insert high horse.
And then you get the paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of my opinion on this. And then you get to the crescendo at the end. And the crescendo at the end is, if I've offended anybody or you don't really like the way I look at things, just unfriend me now.
How self-righteous is that? Like, how self-righteous?
Like if you don't agree with me, or if you think what I said is stupid, don't be my friend.
Think about
My
that.
7-year-old wouldn't do that.
Think about that.
My
Yes.
7-year-old wouldn't do that.
Yes.
It to your point, there's also this piece, because I do think that in our culture, when we think about loving ourselves, look, there's an extreme to this,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, everything in moderation.
Yeah.
And when I think about an experience that I had where I probably took it a little bit too far. So when I lived in San Diego,
You take things too far?
from time to time, from time to time. When I lived in San Diego, I love comedy, and at the time, my roommate, his name's Mike, he was doing some stand-up comedy.
Yeah, this is gonna be good.
And so we would,
Anytime Mike comes into conversation.
yeah, anytime Magic Mike.
It's always
is in
like
the
adding like
conversation,
tequila to the party.
It's
you
good,
know?
man.
It's like straight tequila shots whenever you start bringing up.
It's
Mike.
good. Mike's good. It's good. So Mike and I were looking at different comedy shows to go to, and unfortunately, we were on the same ship for some time, and we weren't on the same ship. So I was at home, and he was out to sea. So I'm looking at different comedy shows that I could go to, and I saw that Charlie Murphy, rest in peace,
Charlie Murphy.
one of the funniest comedians of all
Charlie
time,
Murphy.
Charlie Murphy was going to be at one of the Indian casinos just north of San Diego. And it's even funny to say Indian casinos, like people will choose to be offended. Indian, you mean Native American casinos? Like no, that's what they're called. They're Indian casinos. Like it's an Indian casino. Okay, so
it's this crazy
relax,
times,
right? Like relax. So Charlie Murphy was playing at this casino, and this is at the height of his fame. This is when Chappelle's show was jumping off, and this is where, at a time where people were probably watching a little bit more Charlie Murphy than even Eddie Murphy at the time. So I decided to get tickets to this show, and because it was at this little cheap casino, and this is something that I learned in Detroit as well, you can get front row tickets to stuff for really cheap at these small casinos. But then you also have to think about, everybody thinks that after these R&B artists or comedians, after they're done with their careers, people just think they leave and become accountants.
No, they can't do that.
Like Brian McKnight
can only
doesn't it
like Boys to Men still is on tour. What's Wanye going to do at this point?
Yeah, and people act like they're surprised. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Boys to Men still on tour?
What else are they going to
It's
do?"
like, dude, he's not a tech startup guy now. I mean, he didn't open his own
Right.
restaurant.
He sings.
Like he sings
That's what
for a
he
living.
does.
That's what he's been doing since he was in elementary school, right? And so I get these tickets and me and a good friend of mine went to go see Charlie Murphy. And in this casino, they had clubs and stuff like that. So I was getting ready to go, and in the hubris and overconfidence of the moment, I thought, man, I'm gonna put on my seersucker suit for this.
You put on a seersucker suit and sit front row with Charlie Murphy.
When you put it like that,
I mean, let's think about this. Like, you're going to get roasted.
I had on a seersucker suit.
You're going to get roasted.
And it wasn't even blue seersucker; it was brown seersucker,
gosh.
with brown boat shoes,
Yeah, dude.
like a little fitted V-neck under it. I mean, I was ready to go.
Did you have on a fedora as well?
No, I didn't. But I had a fresh fade though. I had just gotten back from the barbershop.
Who cares about your favorite? You own a brown seersucker suit. No one cares about the fade.
Nobody cares. So I get there, and it's one of those moments where you just realize, man, now when I talk about it, it's of course pretty obvious, but you realize you just overdid it with the confidence, right?
Yes.
You just overdid it. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to a comedy show. This is San Diego.
It's like Cam Newton.
Not me. Yeah.
It's like Cam Newton.
Yeah. The shoes were okay. You didn't have to put on the fedora with the ostrich feather in it. Maybe even just the fedora, but with the ostrich
And the
feather.
really tight pants. Like,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
It's a lot.
It's confident.
You can't look at other people like they're weird.
Yeah. If they,
You knew it was a lot when you put it on.
that's all I'm saying. I'm not
And
not criticizing
And
him.
like I
I'm
said,
just-
like I knew it was a lot when I put that suit on.
Okay.
And so we get there, we sit in the front row. They have a couple of stand-up comedians, and I could see them scanning the audience, but none of them really got to me. So the guys who opened, I could see them scanning me, and they're like, but they just couldn't come up with something. So, but I could see them looking at me in the front. And then Charlie Murphy comes in. He's got that Charlie Murphy smile and walks in. Doesn't even get to the center of the stage. Doesn't even get there. Stops. Points at me. What the are you wearing? Full stop, right? Full stop. And so I'm thinking like, and that's one of those situations where I look back on that very mild description of something that happened, but yeah, that was too far.
It was just, you should have checked yourself.
It was too far. It was too
And
far.
Mike's not your friend, by the way.
He shouldn't have let you.
Because he lets you do that.
Well, he wasn't with me, though. Yeah, he was out.
Okay,
To sea.
he was out.
He wouldn't have let, well, yeah.
Yeah, he would let you.
He probably would have let me do that. He probably would have put on a matching with you. He would have let me do that. But I mean, there's this point to where we can take things too far.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, having self-confidence in owning who you are
is also important.
Is so important, because what I see constantly in culture, and especially being a parent right now to two young kids, is we continuously try to force people to be like someone else. We see somebody good. Oh man, he's the next Jordan.
No.
Oh man, he's the next Tom Brady. There is no bigger insult that you can give somebody than telling them they're the next somebody, because it cuts off all the things in them that might be better than that person.
That's right.
It strips away their individuality.
So, this is the beauty that I think of West Point. This is my favorite aspect about the academy, actually, is you touched on the mirror aspect, and life is a mirror, and understanding what you see and not being self-aggrandizing or not showing a lack of understanding of what is, but understanding and knowing and being confident in what you see. And also it's a realistic view that others will see as well. West Point has an uncanny way of stripping you down and then building you back up. Yeah. And every single day at West Point, it's a constant reflection in the mirror, because we have a 3-grade system. You had an academic grade, you had a military grade, you had a physical grade. And obviously you have strengths and weaknesses. You're better in some than in others, but every semester you got to look in the mirror and see what you were getting better at, what you were getting worse at, what you needed to work on. And that was 4 years worth of putting a mirror up to you. Yeah. So if you're not cleaning your room, if you're not making your bed, or if you're not, getting up early enough to make formation on time, et cetera, then that impacts your military grade. If you're not studying hard enough, right? If you're not getting additional instruction, et cetera, then that impacts that grade. Or if you're not working out on a regular basis, then your physical grade declines. And at some point, you have to balance all of these things. And really, those are the 3 pillars of life. It's like mind, body, soul, spirit. It's physical, mental, and discipline. That's why I think West Pointers come out with a pretty good understanding of who they are as individuals. I won't say all of them, because Lord knows we have some.
Yeah. You got turds everywhere, man.
There's always a turd in the punch bowl, man.
Yeah, everywhere.
Right? But I like the fact that it forces you to be a relatively well-rounded people, and you have an idea of exactly where you are. Yeah. You have an idea of exactly where you graduated in your class. You have an idea on what your military rank was. You have an idea on how well you're going to do in the future, what grad schools you're going to get into. And you learn that between the ages of 18 and 22, and it sets you up for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Also, when you talk about going into military training right after that, now you have to go lead people.
Yeah. I tell you what, if you don't love yourself and you don't have the self-confidence there,
and the self-discipline,
leading other people. but a lot of that goes to too, Wesley, to your point, there's so many, if you distill life down to improving yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically, when you focus on doing that, you are happier and more confident.
Yes.
The easy way to get dissuaded is when you're not focused on your own self-improvement and getting better and being the best version of Wesley Hunt
of yourself,
or Rendon Hunt. Yeah. When you're focused on being, for lack of a better term, bootleg versions of other people,
yes,
you'll never be happy.
Yeah.
You'll never be happy because you'll never get there.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at some level, it's those people that I really feel for are people who have kind of quit. And that's on any one of those three pillars, right?
Yeah.
People who have let themselves go.
Yeah. Dad bod, right?
As we say, hey man, dad bod, right?
Not playing that game.
They've let themselves go. Yes. And it's that idea of, we understand, when you go back to the simplicity of life, we understand some of the things that we need to do to improve ourselves in those areas.
Yes. But do you want to do them? And I'm going to touch on this too. The issue is that the reason why people let themselves go, not just physically, but they stop reading, they stop intellectually stimulating themselves, they stop doing all these things, because oftentimes people are doing it for other people.
Ooh.
So the reason why you let yourself go is because you were never doing it, or you were never working out, or you were never reading for self-improvement. You were doing it for somebody else. Don't go work out for somebody else. Don't go work out for your husband or for your wife. Work out for yourself, so you can be a better version to yourself, and then to your children, and then to your spouse. Yeah. On the airplane, what do they say? You put your mask on first.
Hey.
And then you put the mask on of everybody else that can't do it, for young people, for the littles. Yeah. And why? Because if you pass out, then it doesn't matter.
Yes. And that's how you also show the example for the next generation. As somebody who has kids, like, that's how you show the example for the next generation. I had a situation a couple years back at work where, you know how I am. If there's a dress code at work or for a certain place, I'm always going to be one notch above that dress code.
Better to be overdressed than underdressed.
There's a number of reasons. Part of that is the own personal baggage I have, right? Being the only person who has this beautiful chocolatey skin in the room.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the person that.
I'm chocolate. You're more of a caramel kind of.
Yes.
I think
potato.
Whatever.
Potato. So when you're in a room and you're already used to being different, I don't want to be the one also known for being different and being underdressed.
Yeah.
I'm fine with being the one who's overdressed or who carries themselves in a higher way. And I had this moment that was really funny. I have always gotten to work really early because I am a morning person. And I was in office really early, and I had a boss of mine who was in the office as well. And this was on a day where we had kind of an early dismissal, if you look at it in a school, but we weren't going to be at the office a full day. But I was dressed up in a coat and tie, and it wasn't a formal office setting, more of a business casual type of setting, and I wasn't going to be in there the whole day. I thought I was going to be the only person in the office, but there's somebody else in the office. A person kind of came up to me and said, "Hey man, like you didn't have to dress up to be in the office. There's not going to be anybody here. Do you have any meetings?"
I didn't dress up for you.
Bro.
Didn't.
Oh,
I bet you think the song is about you.
You think I do this for you. I mean, look,
personal pride thing.
Working home during the pandemic, let me tell you two things that are on point in my house. My cologne game.
Hell yeah, you walking around smelling good.
And my candle game.
Hell yeah.
I don't care if anybody doesn't smell that my office smells like fresh balsam. I care about it. I don't care if they smell the Tom Ford Noir on me. I don't care.
It's the eau de parfum.
I think it smells really good.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this idea, to your point, of who are we doing things for? And even as a parent, this gets perhaps even more amplified, because my daughter's asking me constantly, when I see different things, she asks, "Hey, do you think that's cool?" And it's seeking approval.
Yes.
Do you think it's cool? Like, doesn't matter if I think it's cool. Do you think it's cool?
Yeah. And you own it.
Yes.
That's a life lesson that I think we have got to get out of. And right now we live in the Instagram, social media world, to where if you go out and watch people eat dinner these days, sadly, or even out and about or at the beach, they aren't even enjoying being in nature. They aren't even enjoying the sun. They are so focused on getting this perfect Instagram pic for everybody else to enjoy that they're missing the joys of life. And so we have a greater challenge because we didn't have that growing up.
No.
I mean, when we went to the beach, you're at the beach. That's it, full stop. There's nothing else to do. And now, just constantly, all these people, just this, constantly.
Yeah.
And you're missing the world around you.
Yes.
And if you were really interested in enhancing yourself, you would soak up that moment for yourself and really enjoy it and really internalize it, regardless of what other people might see or think.
Absolutely. And think about how much of our time we spend, and I really saw when you were running for office, and this is one of the things that just rocked me to my core and was really hurtful. How much do we hate on people that are trying to do great things?
Yeah.
Because in the social media environment that we're in today,
It's pathetic.
we always put our best foot forward. So every picture has to be perfectly cropped. Like, oh, my butt looks too big in this picture. My arms don't look big enough in this picture.
I think my butt.
like we have these perfectly curated everything, and that's the image that we want to convey and put out of ourselves. And the second somebody is trying to do something positive, we just want to tear them down because it makes us feel better. Then once again, it's a deficiency. We feel like we're not doing enough in life, so we want to tear the person down who's making those strides to at least try to do something and change things. It's the reason I hate one of the worst things for me to watch. The concept I love, other pieces of it and the ancillary things I hate, beauty competitions.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be really depressed, look at a beauty pageant while a big time beauty pageant or Victoria's Secret show is on. Look at social media while that's happening, and to watch these people.
You said Victoria's Secret?
I mean, I've heard that they have shows.
I've heard they have the angels.
I've heard their shows
every year. They wear wings. I've heard. I haven't seen it.
Rumor has it that.
Rumor has it that. Continue.
My wife watches it.
Mine too. I've never seen it before. I think it's been on the background one time, but I've never seen it.
So think about when those things are on. If you look at social media, the deluge of hate that's coming out. Oh, some of these girls need a sandwich.
I know what.
What? Like, this person's at the top of their game. Like, why are you
hate? You know how much work that these people.
Why are you hating? Or if you look at beauty competitions, it's always hilarious to me.
Haters.
It's
a hate tax, man.
It's a hate tax. We'll talk about the hate tax. Everybody talks about. First of all, we don't respect what people can do, and I've told you this time in and time out. Even sitting on a podcast and us being able to have a conversation for an hour and a half, however long this is going to last. That's a hard thing to do. Not everybody has a skill set to be able to just have a conversation like that fluidly. Now, we're fortunate. We grew up together. We share a brain, all this kind of stuff. We're fortunate on that. Like a share a brain at the same time as neurotransmitters that came across. It's there. So, but it's easy to hate on people that do something that is beyond our scope or our realm of reality. I always find it funny in these beauty competitions. Everybody assumes that if I put you on the spot and ask you an unbelievably provocative question with 50 million viewers across the country, that you're going to give the most concise, put together answer possible.
Yeah.
So they literally take these women who are unbelievably beautiful, who have wonderful talent, who are intelligent.
I'm like, and you play the violin?
And then you put them in a sound booth while they're watching other people, getting nervous as can be, watching other people answer questions. You take the headphones off and you say, I have a question for you. In 2 minutes or less, explain to me how we can solve world hunger.
World peace. World hunger. Yeah.
Go. And then they come up with an answer that's half-baked, and everybody blows up. See, she's stupid, blah, 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 blah. And you're like,
wow.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned over time, and this is where I think we have a really special relationship as well, is because, so like when you win, I win. I don't. There's not a single hint of jealousy. When you do something great, I am 100% elated, and I've discovered that I've applied that rule to just about everybody in my life. It's so much easier. It's so much easier to be genuinely happy and compliment somebody, and then don't get jealous. Allow that to motivate you to go do something great as well.
Yes.
It takes 10 times more energy to spew hate and jealousy towards somebody than to look at them and say, congratulations, man. That's awesome.
And that's how you know you've made a step in life.
Yeah.
When you can genuinely be happy for people without any pretense or when you can genuinely say, man, I'm really happy it worked out for somebody.
That's it.
Like, it's kind of like in relationships, right? With breakups and things like that. You know how you're really over a relationship?
Well, you don't. Yeah.
When you really desire, hey, man, I shared
it works
time
out.
with that person.
I hope it works
I hope
out.
that you get everything that you desire in life because I spent time with you and I think you're a good person and it didn't work out between us.
But I really hope.
But I really hope
wish you the best.
that it works out for you. Who's
But
your neighbor?
but genuinely.
Genuinely, like not that. Well, I hope it works out for you. Like I'm not no eye roll, no side eye, nothing. Like really, I hope it works out for you.
And I may not talk to the person, or we may not have a relationship.
Doesn't matter.
But I really hope, genuinely, that it works out.
Yes,
It's so much easier. It's so much easier to do that.
yeah.
It's less stressful. It actually breeds positivity in your own life. It breeds positivity to those around you. It's better.
But you have to get there emotionally.
And that's hard to do,
It's very hard to do.
particularly in these times. I got a good story for you. It's actually one of my favorite campaign stories. Because last week you talked about your Axl Rose story and hearts can change.
Hey.
Nothing lasts forever.
Nothing lasts forever.
we
both know hearts can change.
Hearts can change. Great. And people have to grow to get to the point to where they can actually accept what we're proposing right now about genuinely being happy for other people. But people have to change themselves, and people can. This is one of my favorite stories on the campaign. I had an event, and a young man walked up to me and said, "Hey, I don't want to make you feel comfortable, but I want to tell you something." He said, "My grandfather lives in this district, and he's going to vote for you. And my grandfather, and he also sent you some money." And he said, "My grandfather used to be a racist. He told me that Wesley Hunt is the first black candidate he's ever supported and voted for. He supports him 100%. He said there was a time where I would never have supported somebody like Wesley, no matter what, because I didn't think that black people should lead in this country." Grandfather said this.
Wow.
Guy calls his grandfather, hands me the phone. The man is almost in tears and just says, "Thank you so much for all you've done. Thank you for your service. You have my support. It would not have always been the case in my life, but I'm so proud to know that I can support someone like you."
Wow.
It's a true story.
Wow.
So are we going to judge this person based on 20, 30, you know where I'm going with this, based on 20, 30, 40 years ago? Or are we going to allow this person to reflect on his life, look in the mirror, correct what he saw, and then we gave him an opportunity to support someone like me, and he didn't do it for this is white guilt or this. It's just like, no, here's somebody that I agree with, and I am not going to let the color of his skin preclude me from supporting him.
Are we willing to give people room to grow?
Yeah.
Right. And we see it in our culture all the time, and it's at the root of cancel culture. It's at the root of going back to somebody's past and digging deeper. Look, sometimes people's past is not only their past, but it's their present.
Hey, man, everybody has a past.
Yeah, hey. There's some people that will never grow up.
That's true. You have to recognize that, too.
Some people's past is not their past, it's their present.
And if those people are in your life, sometimes
You got to move on.
You got to move on.
You got to move on. But for some people, it is in their past. It's who they were. Another example with when I lived with Mike.
Oh, man.
right? And yeah, Mike is the best. Mike is Mike just got out of the Navy. He was a Navy SEAL. His father was a Navy SEAL as well.
He's awesome.
He's a surface warfare officer in the Navy with me. Just a fantastic guy.
Awesome guy.
And we were roommates, and we lived in what became known as the Bat Cave.
I've been to the Bat Cave.
Bat Cave is awesome. I was downtown San Diego.
I'll never forget the Bat Cave.
I never forget the Bat Cave. I was Batman. The Batmobile was my BMW Z3, and Mike, who was doing stand-up comedy, was the Joker at the time. So
still is
still a Joker.
Joker, Riddler.
Yeah. One of the two. Yeah. Still great times. Certainly were had in the Bat Cave. When we were in the Bat Cave, Mike got into a serious relationship that would end up lasting years. And there was a piece of me, he gets into this relationship, like we're hanging out all the time. Yeah. We're living in this awesome bachelor pad in San Diego. And then he gets in a relationship.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't mature enough at the time to understand this, but I was a hater. I was the odd man out.
Right.
It was a ridiculous thought. It's like, I thought me and you were gonna hang out at the club, but I don't want her to come with us. Like it was ridiculous. And over the time that he was with this young lady, and oh, by the way, delightful, very nice person, very good person, delightful person. And over the time of their early relationship, I was just very cold to her. Because she wasn't a part of us. It wasn't, hey, it was supposed to be me and you hanging out.
What is this, like the Little Rascals? You're like the He-Man woman hating club, dude?
Yes. It was very...
So you're 25 years old and you're a card-carrying member of the He-Man woman hating club?
And looking back on it, it was so ridiculous. But part of this was a mirror of myself.
You walk up to her, you do this?
Snoochie boochies. It was ridiculous. So I was in this position where part of this is the mirror of myself. Yeah. If I was really honest with myself, I really wish that I was in a relationship with somebody really cool like that too.
You liked it.
Like I really wished I was there, and I wasn't there. So in my mind, it was okay to almost try to sabotage his. And ironically, years later, because I mean, I wrestled with this over time. I mean, this guy is one of my best friends, and I felt that I sold him short by not putting everything not only into the relationship with him, but the relationship with somebody who he cared about too.
Yeah.
Right. I wasn't being. I don't think I was,
particularly when the young lady was delightful to be around.
Oh yeah,
she wasn't even mean. She wasn't even a bad person. It's just
she was great.
Yeah.
And fast forward years and years later, because we never really discussed it. Like Mike and I never really, we really talked about it, right? We just never really discussed it. And fast forward years later, I was in San Diego for a wedding, and I was like, hey, let's meet up and hang out. And at the time, Esther had been born, so this was probably 8, 9 years later. Like, this is long. This is what we do that's stupid as guys, too. How could you keep this bottled up? Yeah. But most people are just not, they don't really have conversations about their feelings more broadly.
Yes. Particularly guys.
And so I see him at this bar, and we're hanging out, and I just poured my heart out, man. I'm like, hey, dude.
How many beers had?
I just want to let you know.
Poured your heart out?
Poured it out. like an IPA in a pitcher on the beach.
Poured my heart out.
And I told him, it's like, hey, man, look, I just want to let you.
So after you poured your heart out, did you watch The Notebook with him? Sleepless in
Pearl
Seattle?
Harbor.
Okay. Pearl Harbor, I get Navy guys, all you Navy
Pearl
boys.
Harbor. Yeah. So I told him, I said, look, man, I just want to let you know that I apologize for the way that I treated her, because I don't think it was really fair to her, and it had nothing to do with her. And here's where it becomes really funny. He's like,
was Mike like, I don't know what you're talking about?
Yes.
So he had this moment. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't.
This moment was between Rendon and Rendon, for sure. I'm like, hey man, and I don't feel like I was really fair to her, and I don't feel like, I just felt like she was encroaching on our relationship.
Mike's like, What?
And he's like, all right, bro. And I'm orchestrating this thing because at the time he was still dating her. Now he's happily married to someone else, and things worked out really well for him.
Yeah.
And I mean, I made it a point. I was like, I need to talk to her to tell her how I feel. And he's like, you can do it if you want, man. He's like, I didn't even think anything was weird. She always thought you were pretty cool, man. Had no clue.
Yeah.
But here's the piece, I think, of growth and development that really happened to the point that we were making before. I knew that I was holding back on a relationship, on growth. I knew that. I knew that I had more to offer him as a friend by accepting the person that he was with and developing a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. That was about me being able to understand who I am and to come to grips with the fact that I felt that I wronged somebody, right?
Yes.
And to come clean on it.
And to forgive yourself, too, by the way.
Forgive myself for that.
Because he didn't need it.
He didn't need it. Clearly, he didn't, she didn't need it either. Like when we had the conversation, she's like, I had no idea. So I've always thought you were okay. Like, you know, I had no idea. Like we got along fine. But it was one of those things that even that specific thing in my life, in that moment, prevented me from being able to really love myself.
Yes.
It put a cap on the relationship that I could not only have with Mike, but with this young lady as well. It put a cap on it because there was something that I wasn't willing to let go of, and it was something that prevented me from loving myself, which prevented me from being able to love my neighbor in the way that I should have been able to.
Yeah, think about how many times and how many different relationships that this happens. And this is, and was with family relationships, it's with friends, it's with even small acquaintances. You know, how often do we look at somebody and our expectations aren't managed for ourselves? And so it takes a very strong-willed person and a very strong-minded person to, first of all, just admit that, number one, and then to actually do something about it is the next step. The Jesuits have a saying, prayer is good, do is better. It's really good to come to these conclusions, but then what are you actually going to do about it? So back to the example that you brought up with Facebook and people, I laugh so hard because you and I realize that. So I can't do that because I'm running for office and I'm going to run for office again, and I have to be very careful. But obviously I see a lot of the chatter. If you look at the people that do that, what are they going to do after potentially hearing this podcast? Are they going to just say, are they going to just unfriend us? Which they might. Yeah. I've lost lots of friends over the course of the past 2 years. Right?
Friends.
It's like what do you say at Tuesday? He said, "Why hurts my friend?"
I've got lots of friends.
I don't. Right. But my hope is that people hear this and they say, we aren't saying don't pontificate on Facebook. In fact, you should, because we're talking about it and I think it's funny. It's pure entertainment for me. What I am saying is that little disclaimer on the bottom that's like, oh yeah, and if you don't like that, then poo-poo on you, and then you could just unfriend me if you don't disagree. Just kill that.
Just kill that, yeah.
Just kill that.
You know, I had a moment, one of those really good ones during your campaign, where somebody just decided to flamethrow you, and it was one of our mutual friends on Facebook, and I mean they just like,
yeah.
I mean, they were like, I remember this one time when Wesley punched an infant in the face, and it was just bringing up all this.
It's not true.
I mean, it was ridiculous, right? And so, and this was rare. I think this is certainly early on in the process because I actually did respond.
Yeah.
You know, Rendon now would never respond to that, but it was clearly early on in the process when I was still emotionally malleable and all of those things.
Yeah.
And so I sent this person a direct message. I was like, "Hey, like, you know, what's up? You know, we can jump on the phone and talk about this if you want." And this person went back, "I understand if you want to unfriend me and stuff like." I was like, "No, I don't want to unfriend you. I'm just curious. You know, look, I mean, we've shared life together in the past. I just want to know if you want to have a conversation about it." And it was so interesting because I got no feedback back from that.
Yes.
I sent my phone number. Like, hey, here's my personal number. Like, hey, call me between the times of X, Y, X. Nothing back.
Crickets.
No response. And so it really makes you think, sometimes in life, how many times do we sabotage our own lives?
Yeah.
Do we just throw a bomb in our lives and say, and give people these ridiculous requests, expecting them to not be able to meet up to those requests? But then if they do, how do we engage them?
Yes.
Like, are we creating an environment where we actually want to have an open discussion?
The answer is no.
No, not at all.
We're not.
No.
And that's what has got to change.
It's the ultimatum culture.
Yes. And we're going to have to get out of this.
Yeah.
If we're going to make any kind of progress whatsoever.
It's the ultimatum culture, which then goes to the idea of the first clause of Mark 12:31, like, love your neighbor. Yeah. And who is your neighbor? The idea that truly everyone is our neighbor. You know, whenever I'm with
every human being,
everyone
is your neighbor.
Whenever I'm with my son, Wright, whenever we go out and we're together, he continuously asks me, "Is that guy your brother?" Because when I run into people, I always say,
"Brother?"
or "brother."
Or brother.
Whenever I run into people, I'm always saying, "Hey, brother. Hey, brother. Hey, brother."
It's very churchy of you, by the way.
It is. It's very
deacon.
It's very Southern Baptist.
Very deacony of you.
Thank you. And so when he asks, "Who's my brother?" Yes, that's the truth. Everybody is my brother, in the same vein that everybody is your neighbor. And there's this whole idea, and it's a concept that we talk about quite frequently. It's the idea of the master's level of this world is to treat people the way that you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. The PhD level is to treat people the way that they want to be treated.
That's hard to get there. But that requires conversation. That requires getting to know somebody. That requires depth. That requires longer than a Facebook post or a Twitter feed. That requires actual human interaction to understand how somebody else ticks.
Yes.
And that's what we're missing.
Yes. And part of the reason why we have, if disagreements are couched in respect, then you can have a friendship. You can have a relationship if it's couched in respect. If disagreement is not couched in respect, all you have is a problem.
We have a mutual friend that I got a text from that I felt like was completely condescending, and it was completely ridiculous. And this is somebody that I've known for 20 years, and didn't pick up the phone to even call me. Just fires off this half-baked, ridiculous text in the middle of my campaign, and basically accusing me of being a bad person just because I'm a Republican. Which again, we've discussed earlier. That's just ridiculous. See, if you sit and talk to somebody or listen to somebody, you can ascertain so much about them far beyond just their political party. The issue was not asking, how could you? The issue was asking, why do you?
Yeah.
How do we seek to learn? How do we seek to understand? And this person sends me this text, and I shared it with you, and you were apoplectic. You were incensed. I'll never forget
It's like a $20,000 word, man.
Yeah. What's the point?
But I ain't seen a dime of that money.
Like, what's the point? What's the point of going on in schools? You can't say apoplectic. Dude.
You know what I'm
Come on, man. And I think this is rooted in this point right here, and that's this person didn't even try to understand me. You've known me, but you don't know me.
But it's worse, Wesley. Because this person didn't leverage the relationship they already had.
For 20 years worth.
That's what's crazy about it. Like, didn't even think to leverage the relationship. It's not like they had to build the relationship from
it was
nowhere.
there. Just pick up the phone and call me, and we could have a very good conversation. I guarantee you'll probably walk away with better understanding. Instead of right now, I'm like, I don't ever want to talk to this person again.
Yes. I tell you, that was the benefit I felt of being a Republican in a Democratic administration as a presidential appointee.
Yeah.
Because I had the advantage of being, in Blade parlance, a daywalker.
Yeah. Still are.
Because people will assume, well, like, hey, you're an appointee and you're black, you must be a Democrat. Like, that's the assumption. So, you know, they say everything around me about how Republicans are smelly and don't like people and all. You can say everything.
Stank.
Yeah, you should say everything around him. It's not going to bother him. He can't. So, but one of the best things that I got from that was, to your point, I built some great relationships with people that cared so much about this country. And I didn't have to agree with their vision of the country. I knew they cared about the country.
But then they found out that your brother was a Republican and it canceled you.
And then they connected the dots. No.
No,
And a lot of these people are people who I'm very close with to this day. But the irony of it is that I really got an opportunity to meet them where they are and respect them, just like I would hope that people would take the opportunity to meet me where I am and respect me. And then we can have a relationship that is not only rooted in finding ways to disagree, but finding things that we can agree on. Or if we do disagree, understanding where the other person is coming from.
Exactly. There is a teacher from the high school that we attended that I was speaking to a couple of years ago. She said something to me that was very disappointing. We were talking, and again, this was before I ran for office, so I think she assumed that I was also a Democrat. She makes this comment. She goes, "Yeah, I don't have any friends that are Republicans. I don't have any friends on Facebook. I don't have any friends that are Republicans." And I looked at her and I was like, "I'm sorry to hear that. I have lots of friends that are Democrats."
How open-minded of you.
How open-minded. How progressive of you. That you literally can't even have a conversation with a single person that doesn't agree with you in lockstep ideologically. Oh, how woke of you.
How can you ever grow in that way?
You can't. You insulate yourself with everyone who thinks like you. And then we do things like, well, let's start, since the liberal media has taken over and they're canceling everybody, we're going to start Parler. Okay. So you're going to start something and message people that you already agree with 100% of the time, so you're not going to learn anything. The only thing you've just done is taking your TP and then put it in another tribe, but it's still the same tribe, right?
No, it's that old story about Abraham Lincoln doing speeches to abolitionists.
Yes.
And Frederick Douglass going around and they're talking to the abolitionists.
Yeah.
And one of the abolitionists gets up and goes, "You don't have to convince me that this is a good idea. You need to talk to those guys that own slaves." Like, you don't have to convince me.
We know.
And that's, you know, I think that therein lies the beauty of learning through teaching, coaching, or defending your own position.
Yes.
How much do you really know about your own position until it's peppered?
Yes.
And quite frankly, how much do you really know about yourself until you're peppered? That's what was great about going through that process of the election with you. And I told you very early on, and I feel very fortunate to be in this position because you have to eat, you know, the turd sandwich, and I get to sit there and say, well, you know, these are the ways that I think about it. You know, I get to use all these things, all those montages that old people say that don't really make sense.
Yeah.
Well, if an octopus puts ink on you, then I guess it's going to swim away through the ocean. Just, you know, so I have the benefit.
Sometimes if a samurai cuts you with a sword, you're gonna bleed. Sure, thanks.
Thanks for that. So I mean, I'm in a position where I get to have those conversations with you. But I remember when this first started out, and you were first starting to run, and once again, not having to deal with it as closely and personally as you.
Yeah.
I said, man, I think you're lucky. You know.
I remember that.
I think you're really lucky. Most people in this world have no idea that they are in 100% transactional relationships with other people.
Yeah.
They don't even know. Most people in this world have no idea that they are completely loved conditionally.
Yes.
They have no idea that if they have another political opinion or choose to raise their kids in a different way or choose to follow a different faith tradition, they make this assumption in their lives that the people in their lives will go with it and be cool with it.
Yeah.
And they are wrong.
And they are wrong.
Very wrong. And what you experienced in running for office is you have seen the truth.
Yes.
And you've seen the truth on two ends.
And the truth
Shall set you free. You've seen the truth on two ends. On one end, the people who are supportive and down with you, you have a better idea of who those people really are.
Peter Tips.
Yeah.
David Tips.
Yeah.
May not see the world the same way, may not agree eye to eye, but they're friends.
Yeah. They're your real friends.
Yeah.
Those other people who, in many ways, felt like they were laying in wait for a reason to discredit you, then reaching out for a reason to understand you, you won, man. They're out of your life.
They're
man.
Gone.
You won. Most people don't have the joy of being able to see that.
What a blessing. And then also, I'm continuing this trek too. So I was on Fox News this morning. So now you have to really be confident and own who you are and understand your beliefs and have conviction about them. Because I was on Fox on MLK Day last week. I was on Fox this morning. And I am speaking to the world, essentially.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to the world. And I have to be very confident in what I believe and sound in my arguments and understand why I believe and feel the way I feel. It's a 2-year process, but as you said, I wish everyone can go through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you find out exactly what you're worth. You find out exactly who you are. You find out exactly, do you really believe in duty, honor, country or not?
And it gives you empathy.
It does.
Because once again,
It does.
who is your neighbor? Your neighbor is that person who's hating on you too.
Brendan.
And that's
And I understand why they're hating. We aren't in the same place, but I understand it.
yes. And I want the best for them too.
I do too.
I want the best for them.
I do too.
And I think that's where it gets so dangerous in our culture is we somehow have morphed things to believe that others fundamentally don't want the same things that we want.
Yes.
And I'll say this. I parent far differently from the way that we were parented.
Yes. Some in certain ways, yeah. There's some similarities though too, I've seen.
Sure.
A lot of similarities.
But here's the thing. Becoming a parent, what I've realized is there is nothing that our parents did that wasn't rooted in them trying to create a better future for us.
I agree.
Even when they screwed up.
I agree.
Even when they screwed up. And I screw up a lot too as a parent, but even when I screw up, it's coming from a place of love and not a place of hate.
And you recognize that.
Yeah.
So one thing that I do every day for baby Victoria, my little one, that
About to say, one thing you do every day is clearly lift. Got any tips?
You know, I got a few tips.
Got any tips?
I got a few tips. Is every day I say she's beautiful. I do the same thing for Esther whenever I see Esther. I tell Esther, you're the prettiest girl in the world. And and we're talking about parenting, I do that to start to reinforce the idea of your own personal self-worth and loving yourself and reinstilling that, yes, I am pretty. Now she's not even 2 yet.
Yeah.
Tell this every single day. And I think as parents, it's important for us to start talking about this in a very open way about loving yourself so that you could love your neighbors,
Yeah.
so that you can be your own person. I love that you tell Esther, don't ask me if I think it's cool. Do you think it's cool?
Yeah.
And if you think it's cool, then tell me why you think it's cool and explain it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's how we start to build the self-esteem that our children are going to need here for the future. Because if you think that this is, cancel culture now with what we see with social media, it's only going to be worse. And these children have got to be stronger to withstand that.
Absolutely.
Our parents never told us that we were good looking every day.
But I've told you, Wesley.
Doesn't make it not true.
Don't make it not true.
Doesn't mean it ain't true. Well, because I also feel like they didn't have to. It was a different time.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Fair.
And how we adapt for the future and how we continue, this is what I was talking about this morning, to innovate in multiple ways for the future, I think is what our point is, and it's what our mandate is to do. So with that said, we're going to wrap this one up. But thank you so much again for this hour. We'll be back here next week, same bat time, same bat channel.
Ah,
I see what you had a
did there.
Batman analogy earlier.
I see what you did there.
And also on a side note, I feel like Mike is like a cross between like Jim Carrey's Riddler and then Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face.
I can see that.
You see?
I could see that.
There's something in there.
It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, somewhere in the shallow la 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 la.
Anyway, thank y'all. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Please tune in and please like us on social media if you want more of In the Hunt. Thank you.